My name's Rachel Krumer. I'm from the Legal Assistance Centre. That's a human rights organisation based in Windhoek, Namibia. We're a law centre, so just like any other law firm, you could come to us if you're looking for a lawyer. The difference is that we work in public interest. So that means instead of taking on every case that comes through our door and instead of charging the earth for our services, most of the time we offer our services for free. But we're also very selective about the cases we take on, simply for the reason that we're a not-for-profit organisation. That means we don't have masses of money, we can't employ masses of staff. Instead, we choose cases that can make a big difference to the legislation in Namibia. One of the ways that law is made is through case law, through taking things to the court to having judgments made. And that's one really important thing that we do. We take cases where people's human rights are being violated to the court to get a judgment that hopefully is in the best interests of people. Another thing that we do a lot of education, making sure people actually know about the law, know about their rights. In a country such as Namibia, which is very young, it came into independence in 1990, so you can think of it in 2009 as a teenager. It's 19 years old, and that means that it is still young, it's still learning, and there are many things that perhaps people in England take for granted, like their rights, like what is right, what is wrong. A good example is the law on rape. You might find many people in England will know if a family member tries to do something that would constitute rape, they would know it's wrong and they'd know to say stop. The problem in this country is that the laws haven't been there that long. The actual legislation that says rape by a family member is wrong, even rape by a husband is wrong. And so they don't know that, so it's very important that we educate people to tell them that their rights are there. Sometimes people will joke about rights. They say, it's a rights culture, gets too much of a nanny state. But I think a really good way to think about it is to say, what is our world like without rights? Imagine England without your rights. And then you realise just how important they are. And sometimes you do need to talk about them. You need to make them very clear so people know what they are. And when you have this basis of rights, it means you can then build on them, you can work on them, you can make sure that people are protected, people are cared for. So we do case law, we do education. We also do law reform and law making. Often we'll work with the government on this. At the moment, we're doing an act that affects children, the Child Care and Protection Bill. We're working with the Ministry of Gender Equality and Child Welfare on this, providing the technical assistance to them. And it's a law that has a huge impact on children. And the only way that this law is going to be any good in Namibia is if we make sure that Namibians tell us what they need, what they want. And so one of our roles is the outreach, is talking to the public and finding out what they need. And we do that in many ways. It's calling meetings. Having workshops and meetings is very popular in this country, probably more so than England. But at the same time, we're using technology. We've got an SMS number, a text message number, that people can send their comments to. We are having a group on Facebook. So something that's popular in England is also just as popular in Namibia. So we're using any and every means possible to get the feedback to people. So I particularly work on gender issues. I work in the Gender Research and Advocacy Project. And gender isn't really a very popular topic. It's something people laugh at, say, oh, it's just women making a fuss about nothing. But it's not true, not at all. First of all, there's a difference between sex and gender that a lot of people don't even get. Sex is the physical differences. So why a woman has breasts, why a man has a penis, that type of thing is when you're talking about sex. When you're talking about gender, it's about the way someone is treated because she's a woman, because she's a man. And often in our work, we go beyond just man, woman. We look at the difference between child, adult, between adult and elderly. Some of the issues that we face can be the fact that elderly people are beaten up for their pension because a woman is meant to be a provider, and that's expected even as she grows older. And so the younger children in the family will beat her up to get the money. The fact that children, or maybe the girl child, doesn't go to school or is late for school because she's meant to be doing chores around the house. Even issues such as witchcraft can be gender related. A man is meant to pay maintenance to support a child that he's created with a woman. But he threatens that woman, says that he won't pay maintenance, and if she makes a fuss, he'll curse the child. There's a type of power control. The man is controlling the woman and her decisions through a belief that she is too afraid to cross. So in the field of gender, we do a lot of issues. We work on things such as rape, domestic violence, married equality, maintenance, the rights of children. One of the issues that we worked on last year and this year was looking at the level of teenage pregnancy in schools, working with the Ministry of Education to make a policy on that. How should it be addressed? And it's a huge, huge problem in Namibia. To give you some numbers, there was 1,465 pregnancy-related dropouts in 2007 alone, and 96% of those were girls. The impact on these girls is huge. The guidelines that were in place were saying that the girl had to stay out of school once she'd had the baby for at least a year. For many girls, that was an insurmountable barrier and they just never returned. Without an education, it's very difficult to get a job, very difficult to have career prospects. So our role was to try and make a policy that was fitting for the new environment, that was actually trying to say, how can these girls get an education? And how can the boys, often if they're students, how can they support the girls? How can they take on the responsibility of being a father, but continue to get an education? Other issues that we work on are looking at domestic violence, gender-based violence in Namibia. There's a lot of rapes, and the majority of times it's a woman who's being raped. Trying to address those, trying to improve the services that are being provided for those. We have something in Namibia called the Women and Child Protection Unit. It's a subset of the police stations where people can go, particularly women and children, for domestic cases, for violence cases, for abuse cases. And we work with various NGOs, with the government, to strengthen the services that are provided to make sure people get the help that they need.